It has been a while since England have entered one of the major international tournaments and been looked at as one of the big favorites, but that is exactly the case with this year's Euros. Gareth Southgate is bringing a deep, a young, but most importantly, a talented squad with him this summer, and in this video, we will break down England's tournament from every single angle. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my channel. My name is Will Fowler. The Euros are almost here. And in the spirit of one of the greatest international competitions that world football has to offer, I'm going to be previewing every single major favorite in this competition, the squads, the managers, the tactics, everything that you need to know ahead of this summer's tournament. And today, we're talking about England. So England enter the Euros on a pretty decent run of form in terms of previous international competitions. Of course, they finished third in the 2019 UEFA Nations League. They finished fourth in World Cup 2018, and they enter this year's Euros as the second favorites to win the whole thing at 5-1 odds, right behind current world champions France. The fact of the matter is that this squad deserves it. This squad deserves the attention. This squad deserves the hype because it is a team with so much potential, assuming that they can tap into it. So Gareth Southgate has brought with him a very talented group, obviously, but it's a very young group as well, which is something that we haven't really seen English football tap into in recent years. This group includes a 21-year-old Phil Foden, a 22-year-old Mason Mount, a 17-year-old Jude Bellingham, a 19-year-old Bukayo Saka. This is an incredibly young group of players, one of the youngest in the entire field. And that can obviously help or hurt because these young players are extremely talented and they're looking to make their mark on the world stage wearing their country's logo on their chest. But there's also a great deal of inexperience, especially in this team's first 11, because a lot of the players who you would expect to be starting are players that haven't started much for England in the past. Players like Declan Rice, players like Reece James, potentially players like even Luke Shaw, Mason Mount, Jack Grealish. These are guys with not a huge amount of England caps, but they're immensely talented. Regardless of whether it will help or hurt, the fact of the matter and the objective truth is that this is a much different English side in terms of the way it looks. Gone are the days of Daniel Sturridge, Ross Barkley, Ashley Young starting World Cup semifinals, and in come the days of Mason Mount, Jack Grealish, Declan Rice, these young, exciting players who have a legitimate long-term future with the Three Lions crest on their chest. I think obviously the biggest strength in this side is the way it plays in attack. So much attacking talent, obviously led by that man leading the lines, wearing the captain's armband, number 9, Harry Kane, a player who has done it all for Spurs, especially this season, a player who will drop into the half spaces and create, can get on the other end of balls into the penalty area, but somebody who I think should be dropping a little bit deeper. And then it's the question of who do you play around him, because there is a plethora of talent that can be used in that front three. You can go for Jadon Sancho on the right. You can go for Phil Foden or Jack Grealish. Down that left-hand side, Raheem Sterling is comfortable on both sides of the pitch. Where does Marcus Rashford play? I mean, it's an embarrassment of riches, and it's a good problem to have if you're Gareth Southgate. But it does bring about a question of how will he line up his attack, because there are so many talented players, but there probably is a right answer, at least in terms of getting to the finish line. I think you can make the argument that that is the biggest decision that Gareth Southgate has to make when he chooses how to line up his team for this year's competition, is how to line up his attack, because you can even go for something like Harry Kane and Dominic Calvert-Lewin as a two-striker set, and you play with a number 10. You can play with Marcus Rashford on the left side and Raheem Sterling on the right side, or Jadon Sancho on the right, or maybe you took Phil Foden into play Phil Foden as a number 10. So there are so many different things that Gareth Southgate can do with this team. Again, it's a good problem to have. It is their biggest strength, but you do have to make sure that you get your decisions right. Even with all of that attacking talent, I think the most important player in this team, my X factor for this England squad, is Declan Rice, who will be playing in midfield. It's just the tactical flexibility that he provides this England squad. Playing him in midfield allows Gareth Southgate to do so many other things with this England team. Gareth Southgate can play him as a holding midfielder, have him stay back a little bit, allow the more creative midfielders to get forward, whether that's Jack Grealish, Mason Mount, Phil Foden. If you want to play him a bit more centrally, you can tuck Declan Rice into the back line, allow the fullbacks to attack the pitch, attack the final third a little bit more, turn things into a faux 3-4-3. I mean, Declan Rice in this team allows for so much tactical flexibility, in-game adjustments. There really is no wrong answer with this midfield setup if Declan Rice is in it. I think he's a lock for this midfield. I also think Mason Mount is a lock for this midfield. This is a player who has absolutely shown whatever for this Chelsea squad. He's been fantastic. Chelsea's player of the year, provided the assist for Kai Havertz in the Champions League final. But when you watch this man play, this young man play, he is so creative. He likes to operate on that left-hand side. He links well with Declan Rice. Very, very good with the ball at his feet. And I think he is another pretty easy selection for Gareth Southgate in this midfield. But then that offers the question, who do you go for as a third? And there are plenty of options that Gareth Southgate can use. You can go for another creative player, such as Jack Grealish, but if Grealish and Mount play in the same midfield, they both like to occupy that left-hand side. Maybe that makes things a bit uncomfortable. You're forcing one of the players to go onto their weaker side. Maybe you go for a player like Jordan Henderson, the veteran, the former captain, the Premier League winner, the experienced one in this midfield, but I'm actually going to go for Jude Bellingham. This is a player who at 17 years old is already one of the most important players in a very, very good Borussia Dortmund side. We've seen his quality both at the club and the international level. He played very well in England's friendly against Austria yesterday. Bellingham is your standard link-up play midfielder, allows Mason Mount to get further up the pitch, provides Declan Rice some cover if he needs it. He's very good at winning the ball back. And again, just 17 years old, he is going to be a very, very important piece of this England squad for long into the future. I think he's earned his place in this England midfield. But again, so many different players that you can use in this midfield. And maybe you don't use a third midfielder at all. Maybe you play with two fullbacks as wide midfielders, playing a 3-4-3 or a 3-4-2-1 like Southgate did in the World Cup. Maybe that's Kieran Trippier and Luke Shaw. Maybe that's Ben Chilwell on the left side. It is a really deep squad in midfield. I'd like to see him use three midfielders, but he has been no stranger to setting up a little bit differently, doing things a little bit unorthodox, and utilizing those fullbacks as wide midfielders instead. So we will see, but a lot of talent in this England midfield as well. Defensively, I think this is a back line that mostly picks itself. It's Luke Shaw on the left side of things. He's been fantastic for Manchester United this season. He's been, I think, the best left back in the Premier League this year. So good defensively, very, very comfortable defensively, but also likes to get forward. That's something that Gareth Southgate will appreciate. Luke Shaw created so many chances for Manchester United this season in the final third. I think he's a lock on that left side over Ben Chilwell when he's healthy. Center backs, Gareth Southgate has brought a few. He's brought Tyrone Mings from Aston Villa. He's brought Connor Cody from Wolves. He's brought in Kyle Walker, who can play as a right back or as a third center back. But I think the center back pairing here is pretty obvious. It's John Stones, it's Harry Maguire. It's the same duo that we saw at World Cup 2018. England's two best center backs, undisputed. When they're both healthy, they should both be in this team. And then the big question, which has been at the center of controversy for Gareth Southgate and this England squad in recent weeks, is who do you play over there on the right? The obvious answer, you would assume, is Trent Alexander-Arnold, a player who I still think is a world-class right back, even though his form has taken a bit of a dip with Liverpool this season. So good getting forward, so good at putting balls in. He's got a pinpoint right foot. But there are other options here, and we do know that Gareth Southgate may be a little bit more high on some other players in that spot. First, there's Kieran Trippier, who is Southgate's primary option at World Cup 2018, a player who is good defensively, but does most of his work in the attacking phase of things. There's also Kyle Walker, who, as we mentioned, is somebody who can play as a right back or as a third center back. There's Reece James, who's been very, very good for Chelsea this season, another really attacking-minded fullback. Plenty of options at this right back slot. I think the obvious answer, maybe not the obvious answer, but I think the answer has to be Trent Alexander-Arnold, though he did pick up a knock in England's friendly against Austria yesterday, so maybe that changes things a little bit. But when all four of these guys are healthy, I mean, how do you not pick Trent Alexander-Arnold? I think you've got to be insane, right? I mean, it seems like the obvious pick to me. Maybe it's not. We'll find out when England kick off the tournament. But if all four of them are healthy, I'm going with Trent Alexander-Arnold. Gareth Southgate, maybe you disagree with me, but you probably know your side better than I do, so what does it matter? England got a bit unlucky in terms of their goalkeeping a couple weeks ago because the player that I thought would have been the surefire starter in Nick Pope picked up an injury, has to get surgery, will not be competing in this year's Euro, so that leaves two legitimate options. I think that's Dean Henderson and Jordan Pickford. That is a tough decision for Southgate to make. You've got Henderson, the young prospect, the breakout player, versus Pickford, who's got the experience. He was your starting goalkeeper throughout that World Cup run up until the semifinal. It is a difficult decision. I'd probably give the nod to Dean Henderson, though, I mean, you can go with either, and if Nick Pope were healthy, Nick Pope, I think, would be the obvious answer. But it's Henderson versus Pickford in goal for England. A very, very well-rounded side from top to bottom. There's depth from 1 to 26 in this England squad. So let's talk about the man in charge, and that is, of course, one Mr. Gareth Southgate. Took over the England squad in September 2016 following Sam Allardyce's very brief one-year stint, and he's been the guy one match stint, and he's been the man to oversee much of this revolution, this influx of brand new talent, the Sakas, the Grealishes, the Mounts, the Rices. But this is the first time he's going to be truly tapping into it, because if you remember, the team that he brought to World Cup 2018 was not the youngest. It was one that included Fabian Delph, it included Ashley Young, it included Jordan Henderson, who's included in this squad as well. It was a relatively old side, even though they did have young players that they could have brought along. But this year, he is fully committed to bringing in those young players. That being said, there were still some youngsters that Gareth Southgate included in his World Cup 2018 squad. Marcus Rashford was there in Russia. Dele Alli was there. Trent Alexander-Arnold, Ruben Loftus-Cheek were all there in 2018. So yes, an old side that he brought to Russia, but it had some young players, some of which are still in the squad today in Rashford and Trent Alexander-Arnold. In that 2018 World Cup, Gareth Southgate finished 4th in his first major international tournament. He then finished 3rd in the 2018-2019 UEFA Nations League, and that included topping a group with both Spain and Croatia in it. So he's done well with this squad, even if some may say he's underachieving just because it's England and the expectations are always so high. He has brought home some good results in these big international competitions. Southgate's used a couple shapes with this England squad. For a long time, it was always a 3-4-2-1, 3 center backs, 2 attacking fullbacks, 2 players in central midfield, and then 3 attacking players. But recently that shifted with this new crop of players that shifted into a 4-2-3-1. We've seen him use 4-3-3 at times, and here's an example of how England could line up using those 3 shapes at Euro 2020. Again, a very tactically flexible side, and you can see it right here. These are 3 teams very strong using different shapes, but largely the same players. So many different ways that Southgate can set up this England squad. He's tactically versatile. He has been in his stay with England, and he's got options when this tournament kicks off in a few days. England are competing in Group D in this year's Euros, and that includes Croatia, the Czech Republic, and Scotland. You would assume that it's a 2-horse race for top of the group with England, with Croatia. Sets up a tasty World Cup 2018 semi-final match that Croatia won in extra time. Also a tasty bragging rights match, a tasty UK match between England and Scotland is set up for us right there. But all in all, I think that England, this is a very good, talented group. This is a group that should not only advance, but I like them to top the group. They're the heavy favorite to do so, minus 250. That's 2 to 5 odds if you're playing fractions. This is a very deep England squad. Croatia have taken a bit of a step back. England are, don't get it twisted, one of the heavy favorites to win the whole damn thing. And I think in order to do that, they've got to top their group. So that's that. England's Euro 2020 in a nutshell. Very talented squad. A lot of aspirations, a lot of expectation, but certainly have the firepower to come through on all of them. Let me know how you think England will do in this year's Euros down in the comments below. Do you agree with me? Do you think they'll make a run into the tournament, or will they fall flat on their face, as has become somewhat customary with England in international competitions recently? Let me know in the comment section below. If you liked what you saw, please be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, turn on those notifications so you don't miss a single video. I'm going to be pumping out so many more of these Euro 2020 Copa America preview videos for certain squads and also for tournaments as a whole. You're not going to want to miss any of them. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter at WillFowler5. Be sure to follow London's Finest on Twitter at London's Finest QU. London's Finest is the show that I do with 2 of my buddies where we hop on a Zoom call, break down all of the biggest news stories, transfer rumors, everything that's happened in the world of European, North American football. We hop on a Zoom call, discuss it. I will link all of those things in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.